British Gangster, Crime, Good Girl Art, Sleaze, Mushroom Publisher, Vintage Paperbacks. Hi, I'm Gary Levisi, and this time we're going to take a sampling look at the British Gangster Digests of the 1950s, late 40s and through the 1950s. In that period of time, you had the what they call the mushroom publishers published a lot of crime, science fiction, sexy, sleazy, risque, good girl art covers. Cover art by Heed, Ferrari, and Gomez, who were the same person, by Pearl, and many others that did really exquisite, beautiful covers and risque titles and stuff. It was really fun stuff. This time we're going to take a look at the crime gangster digests. And we're going to take a look at first one we have is Bowery Blonde by Pete Costello. All of these were based on kind of imitations of Hammett and Chandler tough guy detective stories, and especially like Mickey Spillane tough guy detective stories, and in England it's James Hadley Chase. Scion publishers, Curtis Warren, and a whole host of other publishers published these books. Highway to Hell by Don Ford is a Scion book, and just a great title. They had great titles, were great. Bowery Blonde, sexy, femme fatale. All of them had like sexy women, but the women were femme fatales. They were either bad girls or dangerous women, femme fatales, or sometimes they were women in danger. Then you had these with the guns or tough guys on the cover. Different kind of cover art. All of these were crime novels on the back cover. Most of the time, here it has a list of the Scion books that were available. But most of the time, these books had ads on the back for A-Pal cigarette, stop smoking, which is this here, A-Pal, stop smoking. Those are ads on most of the back covers of these books. And here's another Scion, Foolish Cargo, Nat Carter, another sexy girl cover. 7 million certified sales. These were 2 shillings, 1 shilling, 1 and 6. Tempest books. It's another one. Body Ran Home by Nick Pirelli. This is probably almost certainly a Dennis McLaughlin cover. It's from Tempest Publishers. All of these are from the 1950s. Brown Watson published Crook's Honeymoon by Paul Swift. Pretty cool cover. That's the Brown Watson logo. And on the back they had a advertisement for one of the other books, Ladies Beware. I'm going to take a look at a bunch of these. Milestone Books published a lot of really nice hard-boiled crime and science fiction. They published Dale Amber, Al Boca, Johnny Dark, Lou Della, Ricky Drayton, Nick Pirelli, Max Risco, Ben Sardo, a whole slew of tough guy gangsters. This is At Dead of Night by Nick Pirelli. Milestones are gorgeous. They have gorgeous good girl art, cover art, tough guys with machine guns, sexy dames with cigarettes, bad girl femme fatales. It always says a milestone book. When they are this is in okay shape, but you can see it's got some wear on the reading crease on the spine and wear at the edges. Not a bad copy, actually. These books, the thing is, when you're collecting them, you can't collect them in mint or near mint. You just never see them, really. A lot of them were read to death. So if you get a VG Plus copy or VG copy, you're ahead of the game. And on this one, this is like a solid VG, maybe a little better copy. you're ahead of the game on this one. But when you see these in mint condition, boy, oh boy, are they stunning. Malafont is another publisher. This is number 48 in their series. The Murder Gang by Roland Daniel. You see some of these with the guys on the cover, but they're always tough guys. See the guy tied up and pulling guns on him, and these are the cover art on these is really cool. There's also along with the tough guy, sexy girl cover art, there's also kind of like romantic, Crooked Love by Eugene Lamartine. This is a Phoenix Press book. Beautiful copy, beautiful sexy girl cover art. This is not so much of a gangster as what they would call at the time a romance, but it wasn't really a romance. It's more like a noir thriller with a bad girl or a woman in trouble. A lot of these had to do with white slavery or prostitution, promiscuity, different kinds of situations that women got themselves into, making mistakes and with bad guys and things like that. A Lady Screams by Harold Kaner is a thin digest. Kaner was one of the earliest the British publishers of science fiction, detective books, and these kind of books. This looks to be a pearl cover, P-E-R-L. Yes, it's actually signed by him down there. Some of these books are actually good to read. The crime novels are interesting. They're full of action and adventure. Some of them are really dated. Depends on who and what you're reading. Ski On again, Stick or Bust by Ricky Drayton. And this great cover art signed by Roger Davis, who was one of the really good cover artists of these books, gangster stuff. Another Ski On is Some Get It by Brad Shannon. Beautiful cover. And on the back, this is from 1953. There are so many Ricky Drayton, Brad Shannon, so many, British crime writers that there's in these series. These books were never numbered. Mushroom Publishers and the Gangster paperbacks weren't numbered, but there's a lot of them in the series. I mean, some of the series have 5 or 10 books by these various authors. Some of them have 50 or 100.
Why are you calling them Mushroom Publishers?
Mushroom Publishers because they sprang up after World War II in England like mushrooms. What happened was you had paper shortages in Britain and around the world during World War II, and then once the paper shortages were lifted, people could get into publishing, and a lot of people, non-traditional publishers, got into paperbacks because there was money to be made. It was a new and exciting area of business, and they got into it to basically to sell, and they used sex to sell. And you can see that they used, these are gangster, what they're called gangster digests now, British gangster digests from the 50s, and they used sexy women basically on all the covers, bad girls, femme fatales, to make the sale. You had Ricky Drayton, Brad Shannon, Mark Shane. There's so many different names in the series. This was They Kill to Live by Mark Shane. It was a Gaywood Press. And here, this is the same publisher that published Hank Jansen. They had the Hank Jansen logo on the back cover of the book. And then they listed a lot of the Hank Jansen books plus other books that Gaywood published. So that's some of them. Archer Press in the UK published a lot of really nice hard-boiled books. One of them is Hot Dames on Cold Slabs by Michael Storm. This is Archer Press in the UK. There was an Archer Books published in the United States out of Cleveland, Ohio, and they were reprints of these books. This is a Heed cover, and on the back it has a little story about Hot Dames on Cold Slabs and Michael Storm. And it's the Archer Press in Stoke-on-Trent in England, Archer Press Limited. And there's an American edition of Hot Dames on Cold Slabs with the same cover art in the Leisure Library Digest series, the American Leisure Library Digest. And but this is the British version, and it's really tough to find. Another great Gangster Digest, another milestone. I Go For That by Mickey Delaney. Again, the milestone books, when they're in nice shape, they're stunning. Another milestone, actually. The Frail's a Phony by Nick Pirelli. Frail was a term for women in those days. And their milestone American thriller. They all usually advertised the fact that they were American books, American stories. They were written by American authors or about American private eyes. They always had names. He's like Nick Pirelli. He wasn't, to make it sound like an American guy or an American Italian guy, but it wasn't. These were all by British guys, British authors. Another Ski-On by Duke Linton, Crazy to Kill, and this is by another great cover art by Ferrari, who also did cover art as Gomez and other pseudonyms covers under different names. The list of Ski-On books, which they did westerns, they did gangsters, they called them gangsters, they did romance. So there's a lot of books that they published in science fiction. The Big Panic by Bart Bernardo. It's another great gangster. America's bestseller. Again, they're touting the American connection, even though there really wasn't one. The names were made up. Duke Linton and Bart Bernardo, Nick Pirelli, they were made up names by house authors or various British pulp writers. And they wrote for these publishers. Modern Fiction is another great mushroom publisher that published a lot of really cool gangster books. This is one called Forsaken by Rex Kleiner. And another one here is My Grave is for the Living by Skid Connor. Startling exposure of a gang's abduction of London street girls, graphically told by Skid Connor. Not in such great condition, but cool book, tough to find, not that common. And again, it's this one is abducted women in London, basically the white slave trade or prostitution. A lot of these books had that as some kind of a background. story, the private eyes tracking down a woman that's been abducted, or trying to save a woman who's been abducted. There's Phoenix Press. This is called Tainted by Roland Vane. Another sexy good girl cover with the guy in the background. Roland Vane was one of those so-called romance writers who wrote noir, sexy novels. Her Secret Love by Paul Revell is another one of these kind of romance sleaze gangster. Some of the romance like these here kind of fit into the gangster area because they're similar cover art, and the cover art is really what a lot of the people collect. A lot of the collectors are interested in this cover art. Of course, they want books in better condition than these, but they're interested in the sexy good girl cover art. On some of the crime stuff, though, the really hard-boiled stuff. I mean, some of these, like Nick Pirelli, would be like probably something you want to maybe try to read. Mark Shane, you might want to read. Another Nick Pirelli. Nat Carter. So some of these, and I've read some of them, and they're pretty damn good. So the thing is, they're called the Mushroom Publishers, and basically there's in 1993, there was this book published by Morris Flanagan's Xeon Publications, The Mushroom Jungle, and this is by Steve Holland with a very able assist by Philip Harbottle, who goes through all of the post-war British publishing from around 1945 till about 1960, and it's loaded with covers of some of the scarce books. Let's see if I can show you this. And this covers science fiction, crime, romance. This science fiction covers the Hank Jansen books. Okay, a lot of the that color section in there, even westerns, everything. So this is a book about the Mushroom Publishers, who they were, what their game was, what happened to them, and the artists and authors who wrote for them. Some unbelievable stories in here. So that's one book that is good for reference. Paperback Parade, my own publication, has a lot about these books in them, articles on different authors and artists. And then there was another book that Morris Flanagan put out, British Gangster and Exploitation, Paperbacks of the Post-War Years. This was from 1997. Actually, this is a compendium of all the gangsters that were available. This actually was at the time when it came out, Morris bought a collection, Morris Flanagan, of all of these books. So the books in here are not only a selection of all the a lot of the gangster paperbacks that were available, but it was the collection that he bought, and these books were actually sold from this catalog. I actually bought some, and I know other people who bought various books that were shown in here. So it's a cool reference item. Both of these books are probably available on eBay or ABE. They shouldn't cost too much. If you're interested in these 50s British gangster digests, from the Mushroom Publishers, these books are two that you would definitely want, and you'd also be interested in Paperback Parade. So just to let you know about this, these books is just a sampling I'm going to do from time to time, showing some of the cool gangster digests and some of the science fiction digests that were published in Britain in the 50s from the Mushroom Publishers. The next video is going to be on science fiction from the Mushroom Publishers, and this one is from the Gangster Digest and the Sexy Good Girl Art Digest. So I hope you like it. I hope you enjoyed taking this look at some of these books. Some of them you may have seen before, some of you may have never seen. They're all like pretty scarce items and collectible pretty much in any condition, because like when you find them, if you're a collector of this kind of material, you can't be too picky. You kind of buy what you can find when you can find it, because you might not see another copy for 5 or 10 years, or you might not see if you're looking for a beautiful mint copy, you may never see one, or maybe it'll be $200. It's just crazy. But they're cool books, and most of the ones that I bought years ago. I couldn't afford them today, but it's just nice to know that they were published, and they're out there, and that they were available. And at one time, that was part of the British paperback publishing history, and it's really cool stuff. So again, I want to thank you for looking. If you liked what you saw, give us a thumbs up and a like, and tell your book collector friends about this channel and the videos, and ask them to subscribe. And subscribe if you haven't, okay? And thank you very much. See you next time.